Good morning from the lovely hills of northern England. I believe today marks 4 months of me shooting almost absolutely everything at 40mm with a fixed 40 prime. And to be quite honest, I came to a conclusion pretty early on using 40mm only. But I thought I'd carry it on for 4 months or until I got bored to see if anything changed, any opinions changed. So in today's video, I'm going to share kind of my final thoughts on 40mm as a focal length for me. Alongside that, I'm going to go scout a few spots today in classic fashion. I'm not 100% sure what they are, 100% sure if they're still there, 100% sure if they are there, what condition they're going to be in, whether I can access them, and all the usual good conundrums that come with a wild and random photography day out. Well, this is a cool spot to start the day. You might hear cars passing really close here because it's right next to the main road, and I've probably driven past this around about 30-40 times and only actually found it a couple of days ago. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what it is. Yeah, it's a mine. Don't know why I doubted myself really, considering 90% of what I've photographed over the last year. So I quite like shooting this silver hut. It looks like there's even more behind there as well, but anyway, quite like shooting it with it being on the left of the frame and then the right of the frame having all these trees kind of coming across the edge and giving that sense of the nature coming in, reclaiming what's theirs, if you will. Sort of more modern fence running along the front, but then you've still got these plants growing up the front of it, so it kind of adds a bit. It would be cool if that was all overgrown as well, but so up there's actually another entrance for this part of it. On the screen here, there's two shots I like that include these white barrels straight on facing that way and getting kind of a shot like that, and then coming over here and shooting this way and getting something like that, cutting out this more modern looking white tank over here, because I think that does a little bit of a disservice to the older looking stuff. I mean, I guess it could be a juxtaposition, but... Alright, this is the frame here. I want that archway to be on the left third, and then also kind of including that hole in between the brickwork and the track that runs along the top of it. Oh, come on, son, it's been like 10 years. Wonder what I'm having for tea tonight. So the sun finally did break through the clouds and I got that nice highlight that I wanted on the brickwork and the white tubs down there at the bottom, but after all that yapping, I actually much prefer the shot that's coming up next. Getting down into this little crevice here, I can get a front on of that while cutting that giant hangover of the tree up there out, because there's just so much going on in this scene for a bit of a wider angle shot. So I've got a few thoughts and feelings about the 40mm focal length throughout this video, and that I've kind of found throughout the last 4 months of using 40mm. But I'll just start off with the absolute main finding, the main takeaway that I've had over the last 4 months, which I don't think will be much of a surprise to anybody watching. And it's that if I was told today or tomorrow or the next day or yesterday that I could only have one prime lens for the rest of my life and use nothing else on my camera ever again, it would definitely be 40mm. To give a bit more context, over the last 4 months I have found that my compositions and framing have just felt that little bit more refined and intentional, and 40mm has finally felt like the perfect middle ground between including my surroundings, but not so much that subjects get lost within their surroundings, and not so little that there's no context whatsoever. And that is a huge thing for me in my images, because every single photo I take, I'm either trying to include the surroundings for context or different layers and secondary subjects to back up the main one for context. And if you go too wide, you tend to lose that within the surroundings of the images. And if you go too close, it tends to seem too much like a detail shot. Now, of course, this can be countered with your feet. With any focal length, you can move backwards and forwards. But the beauty of 40 is I feel I stand exactly where I want to stand, and I can take the photo. I don't have to be, miles away, or too close, which was one of the problems I found when I shot with 50 at the beginning of this year for a long period of time, that oftentimes I couldn't get back any further without going off the edge of a cliff or going into a blackberry bush. And that just got a little bit frustrating. But of course, 40 gives you 10 more millimeters to play with. So oftentimes I'm finding I'm just standing where I want to stand, and that's fantastic, but I can still work my way around and pick up different parts of the frame. So I did in fact manage to find a second entrance to this site on the other side, which meant I could go and check out those bigger buildings, bigger huts, metal structures, whatever you would like to call them, on the other side without climbing over that new modern fence and feeling like too much of a rebel that shouldn't be there. So I'm going to talk you through kind of my thought process while I was walking around these huts, because I didn't set up my filming camera for that bit, because I was kind of just engrossed in the process and trying to find something that I want to come back to in different conditions. Although I do quite like the shots, because one of the conundrums is, although I'm scouting through spring and summer for these images, you've got all the greenery, and in the winter that will be dead. So now I'm not 100% convinced if the winter is the best time. Possibly early autumn then, when the light is going to be softer, nicer, especially early morning. So we've got a few variants of, shall we say, the wide establishing shot of this particular scene here. And I really like these. I think this building in particular, from all the ones I've come across over the last year at old mining sites, is probably the most impressive and aesthetic in terms of the little offshoot on the left hand side. And I've given this tip in a video before. I think when the front of your building is super interesting, you can then pick off the left and right and work with the left and right to get various different images that still contain part of the front of the building, but you're now just kind of looking left and looking right. And I know in these main establishing shots, I'm still at an angle, but it's still very much like the entire front of the building that's included, but then you can get in close. So on the right hand side, I managed to grab this one here that shows that second building in the background of it, and I really like that. But then actually the one I prefer more is getting in even closer and checking out that inside of that wall there. There's even right snuggled up there in the wall some kind of like metal radio or fan or something in there, and that little wire there, whatever it may be, hanging down from the roof. The hole in the side of the wall there just gives so much grit and texture. I love it. And then for the left side of the building, I actually chose to take a bit of a straighter approach here so that I could include these wooden beams that I think are pretty cool, and then that little smaller portion of the building on the left is really awesome as well. And look at that roof with just half of it sitting there and half of it have fallen down inside of the building. Super cool. I then went off round the left side completely and got this shot, and I actually really like the way we get the two levels of the building here, the open doorway with the shadow in there and the roof that kind of swings off up into the frame, and all that greenery just taking over. This was probably the least pleasing position to be given the light on the day, because it isn't ideal, but again, when you're out scouting, to get the shots first and then kind of know where you can go back to straight away when you go back in either better conditions or different conditions, it's just great to get the shots in, and then you kind of know where to walk straight away when you go back to a place. Last but not least, I went in for some close-up detail shots. Didn't want to get too close inside the building in case that roof came down and slapped me on the face, but we've got a couple of variants here. I actually really like this one inside and looking up at that light coming through where the roof is falling down, and you've got some kind of like little weird wooden construction that's been hammered to the wall there, perhaps to hold back some damage or some water or something, I'm not really sure. And then a couple more just showing the destruction in the shadow, but then trying to bring some of that greenery that's grown back and just get a bit of light coming off the edges there. Shadow from the pillar as well, which I think is really nice. Well, I was definitely wrong about this spot. I thought it was a full-on abandoned farmstead, and whether it is or whether it was or it wasn't, it's now being renovated. But this where I'm stood is actually a public footpath straight through the grounds of it, and then down to some water down there and up into the hills and stuff. And it looks like when the renovation's done, this will be an absolutely stunning property for somebody, but I'm not really going to stick around too long because I'm kind of looking for places that are completely left behind and forgotten. But some of the little outbuildings are really cool. Like this one, there's a little one there, there's one at the front. So I'll grab a couple of shots. So you can see from here, well, you might not be able to see that well in the video camera, but the stone building behind this metal one, you can see why I thought this place was completely abandoned, but then there's a second one. There's also planning permission up on that public footpath post there, so yeah. But I really like this, so I'm gonna grab a couple of frames of this. Nice trees overhanging it and stuff as well, which I can work nicely with. Bit of light bouncing off it. I think it'll make a really cool photo. So there's not really anywhere else I can put my camera because obviously I'm stood on a road here. So I may just have to take the photo and show you on screen. En route to my next location, I took a quick stop off at a place I shot recently in a video of mine, and I just wanted to check it out again to see if anything had fallen down or anything like that, because we had a storm recently, so I just wanted a quick glance at it in case something crazy had happened and it meant that I wanted to photograph it sooner than later. But all was good, so I moved on to my next location. I should say, for anybody that might be remotely interested, that all of the photos throughout this video were taken on TTArtisan's 40mm offering, which only came out this week. Well, by the time you're watching this video, 2 weeks? Something like that. Brand new anyway, and the lovely people over there kindly sent it out to me to try out and see what it's about. So I am now one of those crazy people that own the same focal length multiple times. But it's a good job I like 40. This is an autofocus lens f2, and of course I shoot Sony, so I've got the Sony E-mount version, and like their other budget options, fully metal construction with a clicky aperture ring, really nice, super small. And I should say about 40 as well, that as far as I'm aware, as far as I know, all of the 40mm on any brand are super tiny. And I'll be completely honest, over the last year or two, I've become one of these minimal carry photographers. For the most part, when I go out to take photos, I'm only taking one lens with me to have on my body. I don't change lens at all when I go out to take photos. The only time I take more than that is if I'm going on a 2-day trip for the weekend, or obviously a week-long holiday abroad, but that's pretty rare for me. So for the most part, I'm carrying one lens. I've got a small body as well, the A7C II, which is the compact style body, and having a small lens like that paired with a small camera just doubles down on the whole minimal carry aspect of photography for me. When I go out to take photos, I like to blend in as much as possible. I like to look like somebody who's got a decent camera and might just be taking photos of their pizza or their grandma. Well, if I'm being completely honest, guys, my last spot for the day is all the way over there, over this fence, over this wall, over this barbed wire fence, and through 2 fields of sheep, which is not my idea of a good time. But there is on the other side of me here a giant quarry, which looks like it may be active, but if it is active, it's in some very, very small form because there's only a few diggers and stuff down there. Although it is a Sunday today, so that could be a role in it. So there could potentially be a shot of the quarry. Well, I did frame up a couple of shots of, shall we say, just the landscape, the quarry and the landscape in the background, which compositionally I thought were quite nice, but just meh, kind of boring. And then I walked around the corner, and there's a please keep out sign here, a danger sign, but the danger side of it's actually been ripped off by the wind, I imagine. Little sprinkle, the little cherry on top, I think. It's not even that weird, is it? I keep calling it weird, but realistically, it's just an element added that, to me, brings the photo together as a whole, rather than it just being, oh, it's a landscape shot. Instead, it's a landscape with something inside the shot that, you know, gives you something to read, or it gives you something to look at, or it makes you think, oh, half of that sign's been ripped off basically it just makes you think a little bit more about the photograph rather than a beautiful landscape. Well, the last takeaway I would say for this video and for the last 4 months of using 40mm is the fact that images shot at 40mm seem to just appear very immersive and very realistic. And I'm sure you've heard hundreds of people talk about 40mm being as close as possible to how we view the world with our human eyes. I don't really feel that. I don't really get that. I don't really look through the viewfinder and feel as if it looks the same as what I'm seeing, and I'm sure there's loads of different factors that I'm not smart enough to understand on whether that does or doesn't feel that way for the person in terms of people's eyesight and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, at 40, you're not getting the distortion of wider lenses and you're not getting the compression of tighter lenses. So it just looks real. It looks immersive. Even little things that I still do, like foreground blur and crazy depth of field in the background, do that from time to time. But I feel like at 40, you don't necessarily need to incorporate one of them to aid the focal length, because it just looks good and immersive anyway, rather than like the effect of the lens doing the talking. Like I say, like the fact that something is so wide with a wide angle, or like the fact that something is so compressed with a tight focal length. That's not doing any talking at 40mm. 40mm just looks normal. Yeah, I do apologize there wasn't more actual images in this video and cooler locations to look around, but that's kind of how it goes with the type of places I'm trying to photograph for this project. It's always a bit hit and miss. Why did I just start randomly walking off down here? Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.